Have you ever stopped to think about what your mind is saying about you without you realizing it? Maybe today you think you are in control, but what if your mind is subtly sabotaging you? Thoughts like "I can't," "this never works for me," or "I'm like that" are not just loose phrases. They are commands. And if they are repeated enough, they saw laws that govern their life. The truth is hard but liberating if you don't learn to program your mind. It continues to operate on autopilot with old, often destructive codes. You wake up tired, you feel overwhelmed, you live reacting to others and you don't even know why. It's like living with bugged software. You even try to change, but it ends up coming back to the same patterns. And then frustration grows. Self-criticism intensifies. And life, it gets in. But what if I told you that there is a way to hack it all? To take control, turn the mental game and build a completely different reality? I'm not talking about magic, I'm talking about consciousness, choice, and reprogramming. You just need one thing: awakening. And in this content, I will show you how. So keep reading, because today you will find out how to master the most powerful or dangerous tool that exists: your mind. You talk to yourself all the time, even if you don't realize it. This voice that comments everything, which you think, that compares, what doubts, is your internal dialogue. Most people do not pay attention to it, but he is there, shaping how you feel and act. It is like an invisible narrator writing the script of his life without stopping. The problem is that this narrator is not always reliable. It often repeats old phrases, inherited from trauma, criticism, or frustrations. "You're not good enough," "this won't work," "nobody cares." Have you heard something like that inside your head? These phrases, when repeated, saw limiting beliefs disguised as absolute truths. And the most curious? It's just that the more you hear this voice without question, the more it gains power. It becomes standard. And the pattern becomes reality. This is why many people feel caught, not understanding why the same mistakes are repeated. Internal dialogue is commanding and not always with good intentions. Therefore, the first step is to stop and listen. Not to obey this voice, but to understand who you are talking and why you are saying that. You are the commander, not the passenger. So start observing your thoughts like a map. The more awareness you have about this invisible conversation, the more control you will have about your destination. We live in an age where the mind has no rest. It is always busy. Notifications, social networks, messages, videos, voices, ideas, noise, all at the same time. It is as if someone had left all the computer windows open and the machine began to crash. The mind, when saturated, loses the ability to filter what is important and what is only distraction. Have you been exhausted even without doing anything physically? This is because your mind is exhausted from so much stimulus. She didn't have time to soothe, to silence, to reorganize her thoughts. Even during sleep, a lot of people dream of problems, task lists, or even the Instagram feed. This overload prevents us from listening to what really matters: our interior. It's like trying to capture a delicate frequency on a radio full of squeak. Without mental space, there is no room for self-awareness, nor for conscious decisions. We are reactive, anxious, trapped in cycles that reinforce destructive mental patterns. Therefore, learning to clean the mind is essential as one closes unnecessary tabs. Meditation, conscious breaks, moments of silence, these are real and affordable tools. Up to 5 minutes away from the phone a day already make a difference. Believe me, your mind needs rest to function as your ally, not as your saboteur. Most people believe that reality is fixed, unchanging, external. But the truth is that the reality you experience begins within your mind. Two individuals can live the same situation and interpret it in completely different ways. That is, it is not the fact itself that matters, it is the meaning you give it. Think about it. Have you ever interpreted a silence as rejection, when maybe it was just distraction? Or did you think anyone was angry with you when it was actually just tiredness? These distortions happen all the time, guided by their past experiences and unconscious beliefs. Your mind is the filter, and this filter may be dirty, cracked, or totally blurry. When you understand this, you begin to realize that you can change the way you see things. And when changing your perception, you change your emotional response, your behavior, your reality. This is not self-pride, it is consciousness. It is you taking responsibility for what allows you to affect it. It is the beginning of mental freedom, understanding that what holds you is not the world, but the way you interpret it. This type of reprogramming requires practice, but the impact is powerful. Frequently ask yourself, what else could I see it now? This simple question can get you out of negative states and open new possibilities. When the mind changes its eyes, the world begins to respond differently. The mind is like a translator who never stops working. Everything you see, listens, or feels passes through it before turning reality to you. It receives external stimuli and attributes a meaning to each of them. But beware, this meaning is not always true to facts, it reflects its current mental programming. For example, a criticism can be interpreted as an attack or as an opportunity to grow. It all depends on how your mind is configured to process this type of information. If you carry ancient insecurities, any word becomes threat. But if your mind is well trained, you listen, filter, and decide how it will react. This process of interpretation happens in milliseconds, and often in the automatic. This is why the same sentence can trigger anger at some and indifference to others. Her mind responds according to the commands she received throughout her life. The good news? You can review these commands, rewrite the code, and change your reactions. Start by observing how you react to the small stimuli of everyday life. Slow traffic, a strange look, an ignored message. What does it really mean? Question. Reflect. Reinterpreter. In doing so, you start to get out of the autopilot and become the true master of your mind. Let's take a simple example. You drop a glass to the floor and it breaks. For some people, this becomes a mental earthquake. I'm so clumsy, I do nothing right. For others, it's just a broken glass, nothing but a small setback. The event is the same. What changes is the internal dialogue that comes next. Now imagine almost running over someone unintentionally. There are people who panic, if it blames themselves for days, think about each other as someone irresponsible. Others take a deep breath, learn from the fright, and follow more carefully. What separates one type of reaction from the other is the way the mind interprets what happened. These everyday episodes are disguised tests, opportunities to observe their mental standards. They reveal whether your mind is programmed for destructive self-criticism or constructive learning. The problem is not what happens outside, but the way you react inside. And this reaction almost always comes from ancient beliefs you can and should question. Want an exercise? Write down situations of the day that pissed you off or affected you emotionally. Then ask yourself, what did I think about myself at this time? There you will find the voice of your mental programming. And when you hear this voice consciously, you can begin the transformation process. The mind is like a silent recorder. It records everything you live and repeats what you often see. If you are called useless every time you make a mistake, it records. If you compare yourself negatively, it records. Over time, these repetitions have seen automatic trails, mental paths you go through without thinking. These paths shape their identity, even if they are based on distortions. The problem is that the mind does not differentiate what is real from what is repeated with emotion. If you say 1,000 times it is a failure, it will accept it as truth. And then, whenever something goes wrong, the pattern reinforces, "See? I knew I couldn't." This cycle becomes a mental prison, but the key is in your hands. The good news is that, just as you have learned these standards, you can unlearn. Repetition also works to your advantage when used consciously. Phrases like "I am capable," "I'm evolving," "I deserve good things" are not cliches, they are commands. When repeated with intention, they begin to open new paths in the mind. A practical tip: write 3 constructive statements and read aloud every day. It may seem simple, but the consistency is what reprogram. The mind needs repetition to create new trails. And each new trail is a possible route for its transformation. The mind can be trained, and this is one of the greatest discoveries someone can make about yourself. You are not condemned to repeat the same thoughts, reactions, or limiting beliefs forever. With attention and practical, it is possible to exchange destructive phrases for constructive commands. It is like replacing a mental virus with a new, healthier, and more efficient operating system. Reprogramming begins with conscience. You identify thoughts that sabotage, question your origins, and then choose something new to think. For example, instead of saying "this is impossible," you might think, "I don't know how, but I'll find out." It sounds subtle, but completely changes the emotional state and the way you act on life. Tools such as statements, visualizations, journaling, and meditation are powerful in this process. They help to fix new ideas in the mind, in a repetitive and intentional way. Reading books such as Joseph Murphy's The Power of the Subconscious can accelerate this journey. With each reading, with each repetition, you will clean the old codes and installing new possibilities. Reprogramming is not to deny reality, it is to shape it from a new starting point. You don't lie to yourself, you write a new chapter based on what you choose to believe. And the more you feed thoughts aligned with your better version, the more it manifests itself. Remember, your mind believes what you say to her, so say something that is worth believing. What you say to yourself every day is shaping, brick by brick, your reality. If your internal dialogue is full of guilt, doubt, and fear, your world will reflect it in some way. The mind not only interprets stimuli, it builds the inner environment where you live. And this mental environment becomes the behavior, decisions, and results you attract. Have you noticed how confident people seem to have more opportunities? Many times they are no longer lucky, they are just dealing differently internally. They say to themselves, "I can, I'll get it, I deserve to try one more time." And this kind of thought changes the posture, the tone of voice, the energy. And life responds. When you change what yourself says, you change what tolerates, what you are looking for, what it allows. Internal dialogue creates its identity and reinforces patterns of action or stagnation. If you say you can't or try. If you say it is weak, surrenders before battle. But if you begin to claim that you are evolving, you get up to when you stumble. The question is, do you want to keep living the reflection of a saboteur dialogue? Or do you want to start cultivating an internal voice that is your biggest incentive? You can be your own enemy or your greatest ally. The choice is what you feed with your silent words every day. One of the biggest mistakes most people commit is to think that the mind is who I am. But think about it, if you can observe your own thoughts, who is watching? You are not the mind, you are the consciousness behind it. The mind is just a tool. Just as a hammer serves to build, the mind serves to interpret, plan, and act. Just that. The problem is when the tool begins to command the worker. The mind makes decisions, generating fear, feeding self-criticism, and you just obey. It's like leaving the steering wheel of a car in the hands of a bugged GPS. You may be moving, but you are going straight to the wrong place. Assuming this understanding changes everything. You stop judging yourself for having bad thoughts. And he begins to question, why are my mind saying that? This simple change takes you from the role of victim of mind and puts you as a master of the system. The mind should not be a cell, it must be the bridge to its potential. So treat your mind like equipment that needs to be adjusted, updated. Be careful. Do not feed the mistake of thinking that all thought is true. You are bigger than any passing idea, and you can choose what you will maintain or discard. When it enters your heart, the internal game changes. And life changes with him. Imagine that your mind is like an astronaut costume. It is not you, but it is what allows you to explore this world. If you don't understand how it works, any failure becomes a risk. But when you know your internal mechanisms, it begins to navigate life much more accurately. You understand your triggers, your limits, and, especially, your potential for expansion. Self-knowledge is like reading the manual of the mind. You find out where certain thoughts come from, why do you react in certain ways, and how you can adjust it. Without this knowledge, you live sabotage without even knowing why. With it, you start making more conscious and less impulsive choices. Want to start now? Take paper and pen and write, what do I think about myself when error? This simple question can reveal truths that you didn't even know were scheduled inside. Exploring the mind is like digging a mine. The more you deepen, the more treasures you find. But you will also find stones, and you will need to remove them with courage and care. The mind, when well understood, becomes a strategic ally in its evolution. It helps you create, solve, learn, transform. But only if you are willing to study it, as a serious explorer studies your most important tool. Are you ready to be this explorer, or will you continue just using a costume you don't even know how to operate? The mind acts as a computer full of programs that run automatically in the background. Some of these programs were installed in childhood, others during trauma, experiences, or social repetitions. And many of them are outdated, crashing their emotional system and limiting their performance. You act, feel, and decide based on codes that may not even make anymore today. He has already been reacting exaggeratedly and then thinking, why did I do it? It was probably an old program activated by some specific stimulus. Phrases like "I never work with money" or "nobody stays with me for a long time" are classic examples. They have been repeated so many times that they have become mental shortcuts, but shortcuts that lead to dead fish. This is where the importance of revising these automatisms comes in. Ask yourself, where did this idea come from? Does this still make sense to my current life? You don't have to maintain programs just because they were useful in the past. Update your mental system as you update your apps with awareness, criterion, and intention. What's more, don't be afraid to uninstall. Uninstalling a mental program does not erase its story, it only prevents it from controlling its gift. You can maintain learning and let fear leave. The mind has infinite space for new codes as long as you choose the ones that really drive you. Many people believe that criticizing themselves is a way of evolving, but in fact, it is the fastest way to stagnation. Severe self-criticism does not correct, it paralyzes. It sabots self-confidence, weakens self-esteem, and reinforces the worst mental patterns. You become a relentless judge of yourself, and no one grows under constant judgment. Of course, recognizing errors is necessary. But recognizing is different from attacking. You can look at a flaw and say, what can I learn from it? Or it may fall into the trap of repeating, I'm a failure, never hit, I'm a problem. One leads you to growth. The other, to the self-sabotage cycle. Therefore, change self-criticism for self-comprehension. Instead of condemning yourself, try to understand, why did you react like this? What was you feeling? What wound did you play here? This constructive approach transforms the error into evolution material, not a judgment of guilt. You are not the error, it is the being you are learning from it. What's more, feed your mind with words you would like to hear from a mentor, not a tormentor. You can be your best coach or your worst enemy. Choose to be someone who inspires, you understand, who corrects with compassion. Because this is what supports a process of real and lasting transformation. There comes a time when you can no longer blame parents, school, or society. Yes, they helped form many of your mental standards, but who lives with them now is you. And that is precisely why the responsibility of reprogramming is also yours. Not because of guilt, but for power. Because when you assume, you can transform. Personal responsibility is not weight, it is freedom. You understand that while you haven't chosen certain thoughts, you can now choose what to do with them. You can continue reacting automatically, or you can start acting with intention. This decision is what separates those who live in the autopilot from the awakening. From the moment you realize that you are the programmer of the mind itself, everything changes. You begin to observe your thoughts as codes, some useful, other obsolete. And as a good developer, you edit, replace, test new ideas. The mind responds to this leadership with more clarity, focus, and balance. Want a simple practice? Create a mental command panel. Choose 3 phrases that represent the version you want to become. Repeat every day as a new system program. You will be surprised at how much the mind obeys when you find someone truly in charge. There is a level above automatic thinking, and this level is awakening consciousness. That's when you begin to realize that it is not the thought, but his observer. You distance yourself from the mind without disconnecting from it, like a pilot who understands each button in the cabin. At this point, you are no longer hostage to programming and becomes the creator of the system itself. Awakening consciousness is how to light a light in a dark room you had inhabited for years. You see the furniture out of place, the mess, the old junk, but now you can fix it. This state allows you to recognize standards clearly, without identifying with them. It's like saying, "Oh, look at the old fear trying to command again," and follow conscious, without giving in. Reaching this level requires full practice and attention. Meditation, journaling, conscious breathing, and even walking in silence are powerful ways. Consciousness grows when you slow down, observe, and choose instead of reacting. You don't have to fight the mind, you just need to learn to lead it with presence. Being the programmer is not about controlling all the time. It's about knowing that you have choices, even in the midst of chaos. It is about remembering, in the small decisions of the day, that you are not the code, it is the one who writes it. And the more you write with intention, the more your life aligns with your true essence. Each person has a mission in this life, and they start inside. Self-knowledge is not spiritual luxury, it is a practical need. Without it, you repeat patterns, make impulse decisions, and live as an adjunct to history itself. With it, you access clarity, personal power, and direction. This is where true transformation begins. Finding out who you are requires courage, because it will also show you who you are not. It will lead you to face fears, question certainties, and abandon old versions of yourself. But believe me, each layer you remove reveals more from your potential. It's like digging until you find the gross diamond which has always been there, hoping to be revealed. This journey is continuous. There is no final point, only evolution. You can start right now, with simple questions. What thoughts are most repeated in my mind? Do they raise me or limit me? These questions are key, and each answer is a step more towards your best version. Personal transformation does not happen in a leap, but in a succession of conscious choices. Choose what to think, what to believe, what to nourish. It is a daily mission, but deeply rewarding. Because, when you truly know yourself, you stop surviving and start living with purpose. You can continue to live in automatic, letting old programs run. Or you can choose, from now on, to take control of your mind and rewrite your own script. This choice is yours. No one can do for you. And the good news is that you already have everything you need to start. Choosing is not a magical event, it is a decision that renews itself every day. You choose when you decide to interrupt destructive thinking and replace it with something constructive. You choose when you choose to act even with fear instead of hiding behind the excuse of "I don't know." It is in these small decisions that your transformation gains strength. But beware, don't decide it's also a choice. Stay where it is, repeating patterns, conforming to what makes no sense. All this is also a decision. The difference is that she doesn't take it ahead. If you want to get out of the cycle, you need to consciously choose which way to go. So reflect, what thoughts are you going to feed today? What beliefs are still controlling their behavior, even without any sense? And most importantly, which version of yourself are you choosing to build from now on? Because in the end, your mind obeys the commander, and the commander, it's you. You don't have to wait any longer. Neither a sign, nor a permission, nor the right moment. Everything you need to start the change is already within you. Your mind is powerful, yes, but you decide if it will be allied or enemy. And now that you know this, there is no return. It's time to act. No matter how long you have spent self-assessing. No matter how much they said you were not capable. What matters is what you are going to do with what you know today. Each thought can be a brick in the construction of its new identity. You won't always get it right, and that's fine. Transformation is not about perfection, it is about persistence. Missing is part, but returning to the center and choosing again, this is domain. And over time, you become your best version, not by luck, but by choice. So go there, start today, even with small steps. Change a sentence, observe a thought, create a new mental routine. Your destination is waiting for your decision. You have power, consciousness, and potential. Now only your action is missing. And now, after everything you saw, I ask you, are you going to continue being commanded by old thoughts, or will you take the rudder of your mind? Will you repeat the same standards, or start creating new, more conscious and aligned paths you want to be? The transformation does not happen in a single leap, but it begins with a simple decision to act with intention. What you have learned here is not just information, it's a key. But there is no point in holding a key if you do not have the courage to open the door. So reflect, what mental patterns have you already identified today that need to be reprogrammed? And what new story are you ready to write from here? If this content has made sense to you, not just keep it for you. Share with someone who also needs to awaken to the power they have about their minds. And of course, subscribe to the channel, enable notifications, and stay around. Because this is just the beginning of a powerful journey towards its best version.